Celtics Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, here we go. A new edition of Celtics Beat. Welcome in, everybody. Adam Kaufman and Valenti, but we are always here. Instead, we are joined by a special guest. He is the one worth hyping up, and that is Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe. You know him, obviously, from his writing, from various appearances on this show, and maybe even first and foremost, his own podcast that he has, the A-List podcast. He doesn't do it by himself, but it's part of the CLNS Media Network with Kwani and Sherrod as well. So it's, great to have you, Gary, here with us. Been a couple of months, so we try not to bug you or anybody else too often. Nice little rotation so that you want to keep coming on with us. How are you?
I'm great, guys. How you guys doing?
Good. Obviously, as we sit here and the show's not live, it's recorded, and so it'll come out at some point a little bit later on in the day. Maybe by the time those of you out there are listening, the Celtics game against the Pacers is underway or already been played. I don't know. That doesn't matter. This isn't a show that focuses game to game. It's more of a big picture show. And Gary, there couldn't be any bigger big picture topic going on right now than Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics, obviously, and what his future will look like in Boston. Will it be in Boston? He has done multiple interviews of late. New York Times, The Ringer. He has said a lot of things that people are interpreting, I guess. I kind of want to say that, although I feel like his comments have been pretty matter of fact. At least they were until he got up on the podium the other night and said some stuff was taken out of context. So I do have, obviously, some very specific thoughts and questions with respect to all of this, but I'm wondering what your immediate takeaways were when you read or listened to some of the interviews that he's done. Obviously, I've had the opportunity to chat with him as well.
I kind of feel like he just let people know what he was thinking. He's a very honest person. He's a very serious person. And I think that this was kind of a breakdown in terms of the New York Times article and the Ringer article, just kind of how he was feeling and where he is at this point in his career, and some reflections on things that have happened in the recent past in Boston and some of the distant past in Boston. So I wasn't like bowled over by anything that he said. I don't think it's smart for him to say, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to come back to Boston." What you want him to say? "I'll come back if you have me." Like, you want him to do Kyrie, and then feel the brunt of that if it doesn't work out. Like, I kind of think I don't think it was anything shocking. I don't think it was anything that took me by surprise. Now the only thing that stood out was kind of like the business aspect of it, where he said he was having trouble or had experienced some resistance in terms of buying property and doing business in Boston. And that's a whole different another topic with Black-owned businesses in the city, and perhaps folks not wanting people of Jaylen's color to move into their neighborhood, even though they enjoy watching him play basketball and watching him make millions and watching him lead the Celtics to victory. They don't necessarily want him or any of his kind in their neighborhood. That's a whole different topic. I don't know of any specific examples that he brought up, but obviously I think that's something to take note of too. And I just think Jaylen is a person who's going to have problems and issues with authority in terms of the system that is currently constructed, where there's 29 owners who are white or non-black. They make money off a majority black league. A majority whites cover the league, write about the league, and it's a system that, quite honestly, could be construed as, and they're making millions, so you don't want to view them as anything or sympathetic figures, but you will look at them as someone they're just part of the system. Sometimes, some ways maybe some would consider them pawns, consider them just chess pieces in this bigger corporate game, where, now with the highest, I saw that literally the Oakland A's and the Pittsburgh Pirates are like the 8th most profitable teams in the Major League Baseball, but they're not paying their players. They're like literally going cheap, but they're making money off revenue sharing. The Milwaukee Bucks sold for $3.5 billion if I'm not mistaken, which was a 1.5 billion more than Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers in 2014. So the prices of the franchises are skyrocketing. The worth of the league, they're about to get another astronomical TV contract. And then I think guys like Jaylen look at the players as, well, we don't get a piece of this at all. We're getting compensated handsomely. We're rich. We get it. But, what did Chris Rock say? Not in this one, was like, we're rich, but I'm rich, but Oprah's wealthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jaylen's rich. Rick Gruspek's wealthy.
Sure.
So I think that there's a kind of a group of players, kind of a disenchantment with the system. And Jaylen's one of those players, and he's going to voice his opinion on that. And I don't know anybody is surprised about that. If you ask probably 10 other players, they probably give you other opinions, but you're asking Jaylen, you know what you're going to get when you ask Jaylen about certain issues in the league. He's part of the players union. He's been very vocal about some of his displeasure. So I thought it was very insightful interviews, very outstanding work by both writers, Sopan Deb and Logan Murdoch. But this is not shocking. And, and I think that Jaylen did put the organization on alert. He's up for a max. He should get the max, but he wants things to continue to go smoothly in Boston, and they haven't always gone smoothly for him.
I think there's a lot there, obviously. I think that one thing that should be maybe a little reassuring to Celtics fans that are, paranoid, because Lord knows I can't tell you the number of texts that I have received, or our text chain that Evan is on as well, with some other people that follow or are fans of the Celtics, that, it has just been alarmist. Like, do you guys hear this? Do you guys read this? Like, Jaylen wants out, and he wants out now, which was not at all my takeaway, by the way. I think that something that you were just talking about that should be a little bit reassuring is, Jaylen's dissatisfaction with the system, the overall NBA system. I mean, that applies anywhere. That's not Boston specific. That's not market specific. Now, obviously, issues that he has had as a Black business owner in Boston, then we get to an entirely different topic that obviously we can delve a little bit more into. But, I think just on the surface of some of the stuff that he mentioned, I think that there have been a lot of talking heads. There's been a lot of, spewing hot takes and instant reactions to, oh my God, he just said this. And my, sort of prevailing takeaway, at least initially, Gary, was, one, we can't put ourselves inside Jaylen Brown's head. That goes, that's for, but two, I don't think Jaylen even necessarily knows what he wants right now. Meaning, if obviously he wants the max, he's entitled to the max, but if the super max, if he makes all NBA, if the super max does come along, and the Celtics are certainly going to offer it if he is eligible for, does he think so little of either Boston proper or the organization, or playing second fiddle to Jayson Tatum, or having been in trade rumors, or any number of things that are certainly on his side for any element of dissatisfaction? Does that outweigh the money? Or does the money ultimately say, yeah, I'm going to resign? Maybe at some point down the line, I ask for a trade. That's not uncommon in the NBA. But at least initially, when that money is offered, of course I'm going to re-up. Or I would think I'm going to re-up. I'm not entirely sure, especially if he doesn't make all NBA, and then that money is significantly less, $40 million less, or whatever it is. Then maybe there's a little bit more internal confusion on his part. But I don't think he necessarily, as smart and insightful as he is, I just don't think right now in this moment he knows what he's going to want X number of months from now.
Yeah, I think it's a wait and see kind of situation. We're talking about after next year, and we're talking about Jaylen's happiness. The thing that I've said before is that this is not a situation where Jaylen's a kid from Atlanta, like he's pining to play for the Hawks. Like, he wants to go home. Or I said it on a podcast before, like, Jayson Tatum's from St. Louis. If there was an NBA team in St. Louis, I'm sure Jayson would want to finish his career. Now, let's say he would do it, but he definitely would want to finish his career or play for his hometown team. He's a St. Louis kid. Jaylen, not necessarily. I don't know a team or a place that's like, oh, this is utopia for Jaylen. Like, he really is into the weather. He's really into, I mean, he's a kid from Atlanta that went to Cal. Okay. So he's used to different environments. Okay. He's used to being conducive and work, making it work. So I don't think there's like this target team or Jaylen is planning his exit or he's planning, to leave. I just think he wants to put the organization on alert that there's things going on. We're not saying currently, it's not like this upheaval or strife in the organization. I think that things have happened that he hasn't been necessarily a fan of. And I think he's taken some things personally. Maybe he shouldn't have. The criticism he got. I mean, we're going back to draft night where you never explained this. Okay. I'm a Cal guy. Okay. I knew who Jaylen Brown was, watched him his whole freshman year, knew he was a top 5 pick. But in Boston, nobody knew who he was. Nobody cares here about college sports. I've remarked Jaylen could have played at Boston College and 90% of the Celtic fans would have never seen him play. Like, there's just no interest unfortunately, in Boston in college sports. Like, there just isn't. So in terms of like the draft night, people had seen or heard of Chris Dunn in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, he's played at Providence. He's a point guard. The Celtics needed a point guard then. And who knew that the Marcus Smart thing was going to work out, and Marcus would be the point guard. But back then, that was the thing. They should take Chris Dunn. Obviously, it was a great decision not to take Chris Dunn and take Jaylen Brown. And I don't remember them booing. I remember them just having like a who the hell is this guy? They don't watch the Pac-12 network. They didn't see him play at Cal. So I think there was this kind of like, why the hell would you take, who is this guy from where is Cal? What school is that? Is that UCLA or something? Like, so I think from then on, he had played with a chip on his shoulder. He played on a chip on his shoulder when Gordon Hayward came back from injury and immediately started over him. And there was a perception that Gordon was getting favored too. And Jaylen's not the only one who thought that. Jaylen's not the only one who thought that Gordon got 30 chances to succeed in Boston. The Celtics wanted to make this damn thing work. And what happened? It didn't work. Then he still spurns them and signs with Charlotte. Hasn't worked out for him in Charlotte, besides getting money. So it didn't turn out well for anybody for Gordon Hayward in Boston. So I think Jaylen takes that. He takes the criticism he got from not immediately denouncing Kanye West, for having support for Kyrie Irving and saying, listen, there's no rules that say social media activity should lead to suspension. We've had 2 cases this year where that's happened with Kyrie, and now John Morant, where John Morant's Instagram post led to a suspension. Okay, so that's something that's going to be a wrinkle included, I'm sure, in the new CBA, but it wasn't in the CBA. So Jaylen, being a member of the CBA, was like, listen, now we're getting suspended for retweets. Now we're, that he didn't say anything, he just retweeted it. So he has questions about that. He got a lot of flack for supporting Kyrie. He got a lot of flack for, not immediately denouncing Kanye West when I talked to him in Chicago a few months ago. So he has, I think, internalized some of that. And some of that's a personal thing, guys. He has a chip on his shoulder. He feels like no one believes in him. Remember, when he came out, everybody said he couldn't shoot. He's a 30% three-point shooter at Cal. He's proven to be a very good three-point shooter. Not Steph Curry-like, but he's had a couple of 7-8 three-pointer games. He can shoot the ball. He still remembers people telling him he couldn't shoot. So that's a lot of this is chip on his shoulder. A lot of this is certain things that I'm sure he notices, like they suddenly make Jayson and they introduce him last in the starting lineup all the time. Why is that? Could you not mix Jaylen in every now and then and give him And, fine, from Cal, you can't, you couldn't mix Jaylen in there once or twice. Like, it's always got to be Jayson. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Jayson's the star of the team, but that's something Jaylen notices. He notices when the last week in Houston, Jayson was not good, got the last play called for him, missed the layup. In Utah, did not score in the second half, missed 2 really bad shots, and still had the last play called for him and never even moved to get the ball. And Jaylen had 43 against Houston, but didn't get the last shot, had 25, including a late 3 against Utah, didn't touch the ball in the last play. So I'm not saying Jaylen's all he wants out, like you said. I don't think that's it. But I think these are things that he notices. And it's not an issue with Jayson. I think him and Jayson are great. Him and Jayson get along well. I think he just wants as much respect as he perceives that Jayson gets. And internally in the organization, does that happen? Are these little things that bother him? We don't know. The intro thing. I'm not saying that's a big deal, but, it does show that Jayson is the man, right? I mean, that is when you get introduced last, you're the best player. And Jayson has proven to be better than Jaylen, not considerably, not by leaps and bounds, but he's been considered the better player, right? We all would agree with that. So Jaylen is probably shooting for that, striving for that, and it wants that respect that comes along with being a 2-time All-Star, with being a guy who can carry a team too, that can play defense, that can do all the things that he can do. So I think he's just kind of like feeling that chip on his shoulder, unfortunately. And it probably reflected in, those interviews where some of that stuff came out.
We'll get back to our conversation with Gary in just a second, but Ev, tell the people about our brand new sponsor.
New friends, baby. Massachusetts, listen up. The wait is finally over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is finally now live in Massachusetts. And new customers in Mass can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Get $5 at least. Gets you $200 in bonus bets. Just sign up today at FanDuel.com/Boston. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. So finally, we all can now bet on our favorite sports, money line to point spreads to player props and more, right from the comfort of our own home, on our phones, wherever you want. There's a place for FanDuel for you. And the one thing, Adam, I love about FanDuel is the fact they have these same game parlays. Now, if you log on to FanDuel, cool thing, they kind of have like some already separated Boston stuff for you. There's like a Celtics tab, there's a Bruins tab, there's a Red Sox tab when we get there. Bet now on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Don't miss your chance. Get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Plus, with the draft coming up, we have the Masters coming up, baseball coming up, so much things to wager on. Make FanDuel your stop. FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org. That's GamblingHelplineMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support.
I'll just add the only thing you left out: reported trade rumors for KD, AD, and Kawhi over the years as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, they eventually never pulled the trigger for any of those guys. But again, being mentioned all the time isn't fun. Kaufman, I have 2 quick, just back-to-back questions here about Jaylen. First off, Gary, in your experience with different tenures of Boston Celtic ownership and leadership and everything, one of the things that Jaylen talked about in the Murdoch article was about feeling the love, like on the court, as you just talked about, but off the court as well, and a lot of his businesses and his charity work. And I don't know, down to, the nitty gritty, how much the Celtics do with his, foundational work and his juice business and all that stuff. Do you feel like the Celtics front office, the ownership group, and I know the players do. The players are whenever Jayson or whenever Jaylen has a pop-up event, it seems like a lot of them are there trying to go and support him as teammates. Do you feel like the Celtics front office and the Celtics ownership do enough to show Jaylen the love of, like, we want you here, we want to help you grow your brand here? Do you feel like they do enough for him?
Yeah, it all depends on which, like, is it coming out and supporting? I don't know, like his event, he had an event at the Museum of Fine Arts, Joe Mazzulla showed up, assistant coaches showed up, all the players showed up. So I think that's significant. Now, is he looking for Wick to be there? Is he looking for Pags to be there? Like, I don't know if that's something that he feels like is slighted. But I do know he does a lot of obviously the Juice Foundation, and he does kind of things on his own. Maybe that might be separate from the team, but the team still supports it. So I don't know if Jaylen is looking like, hey man, I did this thing and Wick didn't show up. I don't know, and I don't know why the ownership wouldn't support some of his endeavors either. I don't think that that's something that they would send a message to him. Well, if Jayson did it, I'd come. Like, no, I don't think it's something to that effect. Marcus Smart's done things locally at the bowling tournaments and things like that. So I think a lot of these guys have their, Grant Williams, as we've seen, has done a lot of things. So I don't know if Jaylen is like looking for Wick and those guys, the brass, Rich Gotham, to be there, and if they're not there, he doesn't feel supported. Now, is it something where, and hypothetically, he's approached the Celtics for maybe support and they haven't given as much? I don't know. I don't, that would be something that I think some of these things, honestly, guys, we're gonna, it's gonna take like more examples from Jaylen, like, the housing situation, the business. Like, what do you mean, Jaylen? Have you been blocked from buying a house in a certain neighborhood, or discouraged not to? Or did you try to open a small business, or did you try to do an event somewhere and you were told you were rejected? What specifically are you talking about? Because I hate to have hypothetical situations where we're coming up with like, well, Wick blew Jaylen off at an event, like, or Wick didn't offer his support. Like, we have no idea, that, because it's not like every time I go to community events with the Celtics, I see an owner there. I don't. Those guys get. I mean, Wick lives some of the time in New York. So, there are things that but Wick went to Kendrick Perkins's book signing in New York. So, I do think that they support it. I don't know if Jaylen feels like the organization just doesn't care about his endeavors off the floor.
Right. Last one here in terms of like what I have on Jaylen. I live in the Berkshires. I am far away from Boston. So I don't know everything that Little Industry is in terms of what happens in Boston. But I would say I think it's pretty important that Jaylen Brown, with his platform as a person of color, speaks his mind about things that affect people of color in Boston. In your opinion, Gary, how vital is Jaylen's voice in the city of Boston? From where I'm sitting, again, I could be wrong about this, and I'm fairly willing to say I'm completely wrong. I would say Jaylen is arguably one of the highest profile people of color in Boston who's willing to talk about some of the issues that continue to not plague, but be problematic in the city. So with all of that kind of going on, I'm not an owner of the Celtics, I have no stake in the Celtics, I would think it's pretty important to have someone like Jaylen Brown represent our team in the city of Boston, where people of color have had harder times securing all these, whether it's a housing loan or business, whatever. I think it's super important that Jaylen is there to advocate for the people of color that have had issues. So again, my question comes back to how vital is Jaylen's voice in the city of Boston today?
I think it's very important, Evan, for him, but I also think he understands and notices what goes on around him. He looks at the lack of people of color that cover the team. That's just honest. Like, I think he looks at we've had 2 incidents with sports talk radio in the last 2 months with racist terms. Both gentlemen have been suspended and will be right back doing. One is back doing what he usually does, and the other will be back next week. And there's no cry for diversity. There's no cry for anything, any other change besides, wow, well, it was a mistake. Sorry, it was like I think Jaylen notices things like that. Some guys don't. Some guys don't know. They don't care about the demographics because, as I mentioned earlier, you're a 75% black league, right? And Kendrick Perkins brought this up with the MVP voting, and you have mostly white men making the MVP vote. Now, are they supporting the white guy running in Jokic? I mean, now I'm not gonna say that. I don't necessarily think that's the case, right? But it is interesting that you have a 75% black league and a 85% white male voting for the MVP. I think Jaylen notices things like that. I think that he goes and looks in the locker room and sees only me or maybe Sherrod walking around and thinks, wow, and there's teams in the NBA that they have no reporters of color, no women reporters, just a bunch of white guys. And people think that's normal. And in Boston, sports talk radio is the most racist aspect of our city. It is. There's no women of color. There's very few women. The only people of color on the air are you got to be a former Patriot or former Red Sox to get a shot. Other than that, nah, your expertise is not needed here. But you get guys who come out the woodwork, or a guy who gets fired in one place in one station and 2 months later gets hired by the other station. It's like, so what are people supposed to think? Because let's be honest, just like as a black man, I feel like I represent my race in everything I do, especially when I go to the arena. That's why I dress a certain way, I act a certain way when I go to the arena. White men out here, many cases, represent the city of Boston. So when some guy at EEI makes a dumbass statement, a remark, it reflects on all the white guys in Boston. That's how all y'all are. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but that's what people think out on the outside. Because I get questions. How could you live there? Why do you live there? What's wrong with that city? How is that so matter of fact that people say those things? And then if they say them, how come they work a week later? How come they're right back on the job, still trying to be funny? The problem is, guys, off the topic, not all you motherfuckers are funny. Not you, period, but you people, anybody, not everybody. You got to know when you're funny and you know when you're not, and stay in that lane. Some of these dudes are really trying to be funny. They're not funny. Stop trying to be funny. And then when you get funny, stop going to racial jokes, or stop that. Have your radar inside to say, stop trying to be funny. If you have to force it like that, then you probably shouldn't be on the air. And
it's one of the,
and that's the thing. That's what and Jaylen notices this.
Yeah,
a lot of guys in the past, Ray Allen, he would look in the locker room like, damn, how come a lot of black people cover the league, but we're 75% black. When I see 75% whites covering or blacks covering Major League Baseball, then I'll think it's fair. It's not. When I see 4 black guys having a show on Major League Baseball and no one says a word, I think that's fair, but it's not. It doesn't happen. You had that show on NBA TV, The Starters. 4 wacky white guys talking NBA. Really? But I want to see more diversity. Jaylen understands that. Not all athletes do. Not all athletes notice. Some of us were just all one. I don't care what you are. You're just a reporter. Black, white, green, woman, man, whatever you are. So to me, Jaylen notices those things. And incidents like this happen this week does not help the perception of the city. It just doesn't. Especially when the repercussions are, I'm suspended for a week, but I'll be back. See you next Thursday. You know,
and nothing's going to deter him from doing anything like that ever again.
no,
Just
it's
slap on the
not.
wrist. What's the point? But back to I just think with Jaylen, because of his high profile status, as much as I love Jayson Tatum, this is not, as you said, stay in your lane. It doesn't feel like Tatum's lane at all. Tatum is
No, and
focused mostly
he
on
understands
basketball.
that.
Yeah.
He understands that.
Yeah, he's focused
Tatum speaks
the
on
game.
what he knows,
Right.
which is I respect Jayson for that.
Right.
Like Jayson, I'm sure Phil's has. I mean, he's spoken on being a kid in St. Louis when Michael Brown was murdered, and he has had certain things he said, but he will not go beyond what he knows or what he's comfortable with. He is not trying to be an activist if he doesn't, and I respect that. Like, Malcolm Brogdon, very knowledgeable. Jaylen, very knowledgeable. Other players, they have different focuses. Jayson's about his family. Jayson's about having fun, playing ball, learning how to golf, like enjoying the NBA life. His perspective is different, and that's fine. Jaylen's perspective is all serious, all like, I ain't playing here. We ain't playing no games here. That's Jaylen. You don't see Jaylen smile as much as other guys. We really don't know what makes Jaylen happy. Is it winning? Is it playing ball? I think he enjoys playing ball, but I think his mind is constantly working. How happy should I be in this system? How happy should I be when I see my people on the street suffering? Or I see a 12-year-old kid in Dorchester get shot by a drug dealer for nothing. Like, how happy should I be? And he thinks about things like that. Some athletes don't, and I get it. All these athletes are not going to be Arthur Ashe or it's just not. That's fine. I don't, but Jaylen is a special one, and I think he looks at guys like Arthur Ashe and Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali, and sees those guys as role models, not only for their off court.
One last break here on Celtics Beat to tell you about a way that you can help yourself, quite frankly, and a good new partner of ours. It is BetterHelp. Evan, I could tell our listeners so much about BetterHelp based on obviously things that I have heard, but I prefer to defer to you, someone who's experienced the service personally.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I use BetterHelp for my mental health, my therapist, and I've been working for a couple of months now. Again, I don't have subject anxiety. Some people do. I do not. I have different business things that cause me anxiety that I need help dealing with, right? And as a perfect example, sometimes I let certain things get to me, like very personally, that are out of my control. So why do I spend so much time agonizing and creating self-doubt and all these particular different negative emotions over something that I cannot control? So what I have done for myself and for my own sanity in a way, but I want to use a better word than that, but for my own mental health standpoint, for my own health standpoint, I've decided to be proactive about my mental health and try and get some of the things that I don't think I can control under my control and dealing with them in healthier ways. And BetterHelp is the best way for me to do that. I have my own schedule with my therapist. We text, we create different sessions. He is available to me 24/7 via text. So if something comes up that I'm having a hard time dealing with at that moment, I don't have to wait until my scheduled appointment to have a conversation with him if I really need it. He is available to me at all times. I have needed this service more than I care to admit. At least I thought at first it would be something that would be hard for me to do because I thought I was so strong and I could do this myself. There are things you can't do all by yourself, and you think you know yourself, and sometimes you need someone else to help clarify certain things for you. BetterHelp has done that for me and countless others around the country. Let it do it for you, because the sooner you address some of these issues, the sooner you can move on and accomplish new goals, set new standards, and just have a better life for yourself, Adam.
Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, as Evan outlined, obviously. And I think as we're all learning, obviously, as we get a little bit older and, we're always growing, we're always changing. Life can always throw you new curveballs, new wrinkles. I have certainly dealt with it in a number of different ways, professionally, personally, emotionally, psychologically. And it never changes. Life is challenging, obviously. And so sometimes you need a little help and you need someone to help you get through some of those times, as Evan talked about with BetterHelp. BetterHelp comes into play with a lot of different ways, entirely online for starters, makes it very easy for you, designed to be convenient, flexible, as Evan alluded to, suited to your schedule. And if you are thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is obviously something that we very much recommend going and checking out. You could fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched up with a licensed therapist. You could switch therapists for no additional charge if it turns out that the one you are matched up with isn't, connecting with you in just the way that you would like. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com. Use the link, specifically BetterHelp.com/beat, BEAT. Get 10% off your first month. That is HELP, help.com/beat. So BetterHelp.com/beat. Let's get back to the show. I don't know if I've said this to you before, Gary. Evan and I have spoken about it frequently, though, over the years. In the 5 years that I have been associated with and hosted the show, one of the most, I don't know if enjoyable would be the right word because it was a very serious topic, but one of the most interesting conversations on this show, and one of the best shows that I think that we have done, was when you came on with us early in COVID and we were talking about the NBA and the reaction to Black Lives Matter, social justice movement, a lot of obviously the racial components of things that were happening in and around the league opposite COVID at that same time. And I think this conversation in many ways, it dovetails into a lot of the same issues, obviously. And certainly that, something that Evan and I can't speak to, would never even try or pretend to be able to speak to. You were just sort of alluding to in part, but when Jaylen comes out and says some of the things that he has about, being a person of color in Boston and trying to, be a business owner and buy here, buy there, stand up for whatever it may be, obviously specific to this city. You've been here a long time.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I would like, if I were thinking about it, I would think, look, racism is a problem worldwide. It's not like it's a Boston problem. It's a problem everywhere. And I think Jaylen obviously is smart enough to know that whether he stays in Boston or whether he goes and plays somewhere else, racism is going to just be something that, unfortunately, for a period of time, hopefully not forever, exists. What I'm wondering is Boston, not Boston before, we all know what Boston was, but is Boston now worse than everywhere else? Is it as bad here as anywhere else? Or is Jaylen, should he elect to leave Boston and go play somewhere else for reasons that may be totally just about the organization and playing second fiddle to Jayson and having nothing to do with anything else about Boston, the city? Would he be likely to experience the same thing elsewhere?
Well, it's a tough question. It was a good question. I think there's certain cities that are more like open and fun in terms of, Bostonians take their pro sports very seriously. It's like a lot like Boston and Philadelphia are a lot alike. Like there's a lot of people who take their pro sports seriously. And people ask me a lot, being born and raised in Los Angeles, okay, growing up, watching, my images of Boston was the busing riots and the Boston Garden, all white fans watching Bird, and we all knew that Max. I always have this conversation with Max and ML Carr and Parrish and guys like that. They had black players, but it was basically considered a white team. Now that's a stereotype. Wasn't the case, because Casey Jones was a freaking black coach in the 1980s when the NBA didn't hire a lot of black coaches in the 1980s. You had to be Lenny Wilkins. You had to be you had to be a legendary player to get that shot. So Casey Jones is a pioneer. So people kind of ignore those things. But people ask me, well, what's it like there? And I have never been called out of my name here, but I will say that I think there are people here who are born here in some of the working class areas, raised here, and they're going to die here. okay? And they're not happy about that, and that affects their disposition. And I think that affects their resentment for certain people. And and we're in a league now in the NBA where there's not a lot of great white players, right? In terms of especially white Americans, there's a lot of obviously Jokic and Luka, great players. And I'm saying, but it's not the Bird's years are over, right? So I think that is there more resentment from these people toward rich black men than there would be rich white men? I think that's a good question. I think that's probably how Jaylen perceives it, that there's more resentment and they're harder. And I think he said some or a portion of Celtic fans. I think there are a lot of amazing, great Celtic fans, support of their team, love all the emails I got about Jaylen and his lack of denouncement of Kanye West and his support of Kyrie. When I noticed when he got back on the floor at the Garden, he got ovations. It wasn't people yelling and screaming expletives and things like that, right? So I think there's a lot of 90% of amazing Celtic fans. But as I said, then there's like that 10%, the kid who threw the bottle at Kyrie, the guy on the sports talk radio. There's people that get perceived and thrown into a box. That's how all your Bostonians are. It's not fair. Not saying it's fair. Life ain't fair, though. So are there more cities where Jaylen probably wouldn't get as much flack? Of course. But do they take their, you want to play in Charlotte? You want to play in, a city that doesn't really care, but, it's nice and you can play ball. Like people like winning here because it's the greatest place for which to win. I mean, the 08 team still gets talked about. It's been 15 years. Some kid in the 9th grade was not born when the Celtics won the last championship. He doesn't remember that, or she doesn't remember that, or they don't remember that. That's how long it's been. 08. It seems like yesterday, but I'd like to be 15 years young. I'm sure all of us would if we could go back and know what we know now and be 15 years younger. But the fact is that team is still revered. And I think that's the whole flip side of this, guys. The Celtics, how much they celebrate and beloved their legends, how much they bring back. Those players have noticed over the years the reuniting of the 60s teams. They notice those guys and how much love they get and how the team puts them up in a nice hotel and feeds them and their family. Like they notice all that. They were there. They watched KG get his number retired. They're like that. I want that here. I want to walk onto the floor and everybody just give me a standing O and people crying in the stands. I want that. So that's the flip side of this. That's the great part of Boston. That's the great part of of being a legend. I said on a podcast, Logan Murgaugh's podcast, freaking Dave Roberts is revered for stealing a freaking base. One base.
Legend forever.
Legend forever. One base. And you want to look at the flip side too, and race doesn't have anything to do with it. Look at the poor story of Bill Buckner. It took 20 years for him to come back to Fidway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 20 years.
Touching. That was a touching moment too.
Yeah, like when to forgive him and
20 years and them winning.
Yes. After they won the World Series, they're like, okay, Bill, we only had to wait 18 more years. We forgive you. And that was hurt. And Bill's, God bless him, he passed away. And, I hope that didn't prematurely end all that stress and all that, like watching that play constantly and watching Mookie Wilson score. I mean, Ray Knight score and Mookie Wilson ground out. Like, to me, that's the flip side. But I think guys look at Boston and they think this is a special city. And I want this to be special for me. Like, I think that's what Jaylen's thinking. I want to be one of those dudes walking into the arena and getting standing O's for winning championships. I want to be revered here, because if you're revered here, it's like, well, you can revere everywhere. Like there's no tougher city. There's no better city to be loved than Boston. It isn't. Look at Ortiz. Look at these guys. Like that just, like look at Jerry Remy. I mean, Jerry Remy, great Jerry Remy. I mean, just that appreciation for putting on that green or putting on that Red Sox uniform or the Bruins or the Patriots. These guys are adored.
Look at Scal.
Oh God, it's a whole other, category.
Yeah. You know what though? But I like it. You know what? Where I won't give Red Sox fans, and I am one, by the way, where I won't give Red Sox fans or Boston credit with respect to the Bill Buckner thing. If we were sitting on 100, however many years, still without a championship, if those 4 hadn't happened in the last 20 years, Bill Buckner still wouldn't be welcome back here.
Yeah,
people would still be on that. Yeah. So winning is what softens stuff.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, he tried. The whole situation was terrible, but and I said I was grew up a Dodger fan where Buckner played for the Dodgers. He was a Dodger prospect, but then he went to the Cubs, and finally, and then to the Sox and whatever. But so I think that there's so many layers to this story, and I think Jaylen and Jayson, they saw Pierce get his number retired. They saw Garnett.
Yeah, they want that.
They know how they want that. They know how special it is to win here. You don't think they watch all these 08 tributes and all these 08 specials and all these, and said, damn. And they just won one friggin'
I was going to say, they just won once. It was only one time.
God forbid if they had won in 2010.
I was going to say that, like, I can't, and I love it. I love that team. I love that era. I love all the players, all of it. And like, I love it because I'm incredibly biased, obviously, but I would be hard pressed, Gary, and I've said this so many times, to come up with a team that has lived off one championship more than the 08. I'm like, does anyone say anything about the 04 Pistons?
No, I mean, I'm sure in Detroit they're revered, but
not like here.
Not like here. And so I think those guys understand that. That's the whole trick to this thing, guys. Like, Jaylen wants this to work. Because there ain't he's not going to get the love in Charlotte or Memphis or Dallas. Like, it's Boston and maybe the Lakers, where those guys walk and they're just immortalized. That's the lure here of playing here. In addition to wearing the green and the tradition and the records and being that guy that wants to, Jayson has a chance to break the season record for scoring average. They see that. I mean, Isaiah Thomas can walk into the Garden and still get a standing O.
For sure.
For 2.5 years. That was just 2.5 years. And he played his ass. I mean, I feel bad for Isaiah. I can't feel any worse for a guy than Isaiah not be able to go out like he wanted to. 2.5 years he gave his heart and his blood and his damn hip to the Celtics.
And teeth.
His teeth. I forgot the teeth. Yes.
Yeah.
Teeth knocked out.
Man was in a dental chair before a playoff game.
Right. It gave his heart to his franchise.
Yeah.
And still will get love when he comes back. Still. I mean, so those guys notice that. They want to be part of that. They know how special it is to win in Boston. And that's why I think part of the reasons why they felt so bad about losing in the finals last year, and they want to get one. Not only for their own resume, but they want to be immortalized too.
It's funny, there's always been, like, in my thought process of thinking about where I'm going with this, there's always been something missing, and I've never really known what it was. And you've now, just through talking about this, you've helped me connect these dots. So there have been, one of the common conversations, as we all know, in pro sports, but maybe the NBA more than anywhere else in recent years, has been, how much are these players historians of the league? How much do they really care? Like, what does it mean coming to Boston, the 17 banners? Like, do players today really give a crap about a team's history and Russell and Bird and all these guys and what they did decades before they were even born? And a lot of people would argue, like, no, the modern day player doesn't care. They care about the money. They care about endorsements. They care about weather in free agency or all this different stuff. But you hit it. What what does resonate with today's player, it's not how many times all these guys, Russell Bird and Parrish and McHale, and all, how many championships they have, or how many banners Boston has up in the rafters at the Garden. Like that isn't really what matters around here to the modern day player. I don't think. I'm not one. I'm guessing that is not what matters. But what absolutely does matter, what absolutely connects through all those generations, all those dots, is how you are treated after you win. That is the part that makes Boston, and like you said, maybe LA, unique more than anywhere else. That is where the history in this city does come into play. That's where the history hits all of these players today, where you're just, you look up the banners and you're like, yeah, I want one of those, or I want my number retired. But like, who doesn't? That's, players in any city feel that way. But players in any city are not treated the way you're treated after you win here. That's the difference.
Totally. I mean, and you look at and how like I look at Eddie House calling Celtics we. I mean, he played with several different teams, but identifies as a Celtic. You know what I'm saying? Like all those guys identify. Perk's a Celtic. He played with the Thunder and the Cavs and played with the Pelicans and all. Perk's a Celtic, and that's how he identifies. And I think there's that pride that those guys do have in the organization, in themselves, and pride for playing this for the city of Boston, playing in a place that's not easy to play. You want to play your whole career in Charlotte. You want to play where half the fans are rooting for the other team. There's no pressure to win because no one cares because everybody's waiting for Duke to play. Like, you want to do that? You want to play in Atlanta where everybody's just ready to go to the party or ready to hang out after the game and it's just a social event? Like, you want to play where the fans adore and love, and there's no place like Boston. And I said I've been in all these different arenas. I grew up a Lakers fan. Like, there's nothing like it. And that's the flip side of what Jaylen is saying about the treatment here is, damn it, I want what those guys have. How do I get that? How do I retire and get number 7 lifted and come back and in reunions and get standing O's and whatever. Like, I love that stuff. That's what they're saying. They love that stuff. And that's the lure of playing here.
Do you still root for the Lakers?
No.
Do you root for anyone?
I a lot of friends are Laker fans. I root for my LA Kings. We actually having a good year this year. And the Dodgers, which,
Yeah, I know you're a Dodgers guy.
They're saving up their money for Ohtani. So
everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
That'll be, 500. He'll get 500 million.
Yeah, 600 million. Yeah.
600.
Because who's the highest paid player now?
Oh man, it was Trout.
Trout. Bryce Harper was there.
Harper, Mookie got a good contract.
Yeah.
Is it
one of the pitchers? Maybe it might be one of the pitchers. Like, in terms of average annual value, it might be like Scherzer or Verlander or something like that. Somebody Steve Cohen just paid.
So there's nobody who's making
Judge
500.
got 9 for 360.
Yeah, but I think in terms of average annual value, Ohtani is going to just break everything.
Yeah, Scherzer got 43 last year. Or for this coming year, I think.
Yeah, Cohen doesn't have any problems paying anybody any amount of money. So
that's crazy.
He's just going nuts.
Yeah.
And it's either somebody on the Mets or someone on the Padres, because the Padres just paid a bunch of people too. So that's just the way it is.
280 for Xander. That's crazy. But
11 years too.
Lunacy.
Yeah. Wow.
Good for him though. Good for him.
Great for him.
Good for Xander. I'm pumped. You kidding me?
Largest contract in MLB history. Trout, 12 for 426.5.
Okay.
That's
going to get 500 million.
Yeah, not the highest AAV, but obviously
most money.
most dollars.
Yeah.
Getting 600.
I don't root for the Lakers. Like I said, I have friends, family of Laker fans.
Yeah.
If they're
do you root for the Celtics? Like, do you root with? So it's like pure. Maybe you root for the team, like, for the purposes of the job. Like, the job's better when the team's good.
The players are easier to deal with when they're winning.
Yeah,
I've always said this. The players are easier to deal with when they're winning.
But you are not a fan.
No, but can't be a fan. You can't be a journalist and then be we and us and all. No way. No way.
Yeah.
And I know that line gets really blurred nowadays in today's journalism.
Yeah, especially now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that people are literally rooting for the team that they cover. But no, I was taught, nope, you don't root for the team. Now, are the Celtics.
It probably makes it easy when you grow up hating them too.
Yeah, but I appreciate them. You know what I'm saying? Like when I got here and I met Tommy Heinsohn for the first time, and I had a lot of family members that didn't like Tommy because they thought he was a biased announcer because obviously he was a former Celtic player and coach, and he's doing the finals with Celtics in it, right? And Tommy couldn't have been a nicer guy. Cedric Maxwell, when you meet all these people and then you learn the tradition, you learn the organization, you definitely grow appreciation for it. You know, when you get to talk to guys who have since passed on, like Bill Russell, and I had good conversation with John Havlicek and those guys, and you're just like, wow, this is some serious history. Like the Lakers have the history of more current, like, you know, Magic and Kareem and those Worthy and those guys, but the Celtics have the Cousy and those guys who are just legends. You learn to appreciate the tradition of the organization. So it's just being on a different side. But no, as I said, the players are better to deal with them when they're winning. As you know, there's better stories and more drama and good stuff to write when they're losing. Look at the chicken and beer Red Sox.
Yeah,
You know
especially the city of Boston thrives off negativity like any other. I've never seen anything like some of this, and I have actually cut some of the talk radio like out of my life. Like I'm muting and blocking their accounts because I just don't need to deal with the negativity. But it feels like Boston, Gary, more than any other city that I kind of follow on the periphery or follow like kind of closely, thrives off negative attention in media. It drives me absolutely nuts that, and like you must experience this a million times more than I do because of your following, being a guy that's covered the Celtics for so long. Like it almost feels like fans enjoy it more when the Celtics lose than when they win because they can complain about things. Like when the C's drop like 4 games in a row or 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5, people are more inclined to have conversations about the Celtics versus like talking about them when they're 21-5 and breaking records for the most efficient offense in the history of the league. Like right now, because Boston has been in a little bit of a tailspin, and I'm not even a tailspin, like they're going through some of the tough times that come with playing an 82-game season, but more people, I think, just enjoy having conversation about the negativity. I mean, Adam, our group chats are just like this. People enjoy thriving off the negativity versus talking about like, hey, Jaylen Brown had 43 the other night, and it looks like, from my perspective, he's starting to add a little more creation to his game. Like, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but Jaylen is becoming a much better passer, a much better reader of things happening on the floor. As Tatum has slid a little bit, Jaylen has really stepped up, not just as a scorer, but as a facilitator. More people are more willing to talk about how Boston isn't lighting the world on fire and they're taking too many threes. Like, do you know any other city that thrives off this kind of negativity?
Well, evidently it's human nature. I think people will rather say something negative than positive. I think even us, when we go somewhere and have a positive experience at a store or get great customer service, we'll say, oh, I'm going to give you a good recommendation. We might forget, but let that person like shortchange us or make a remark. We're going to go, where's your manager right now?
I work in retail, Gary. You're speaking my language right now, bro.
The negative is we're more inclined to be negative. And for me, I get a lot of flack for quote unquote being negative on the Celtics because I'm not. I think they think I should be a fan, and maybe other reporters are fans. I'm not a fan, and I'm assessing how I want my team to be covered. If I follow my team, I'm a UC Berkeley Cal grad. I want all the, not negative, but I want the real deal on how my team is covered. I don't want to hear only good stuff. I want, if they lost, I don't want to hear, we'll get them next time. I want to hear why the hell they lost, who messed up, accountability. I want my team fairly assessed when I'm following my team. I don't want I'm not going to accuse a writer of being negative. I want to know if they lost, why they lost, who's at blame. And I think some Celtic fans only want to hear good stuff. And if, like you said, Evan, if it's negative, they want to take on Tatum. Tatum sucks. We should trade him. I got an email the other day that this guy said he would trade Tatum straight up for Rudy Gobert. Like true email.
Stop.
Do you even respond to that one?
No, I did not respond.
Do not.
But someone emailed me and said they would take Rudy Gobert straight up for Tatum. Like true story.
I'm a glutton for punishment. I'd ask for the reason.
I mean, to me,
outline it. Give me the details.
That's funny, but it's like that's what I think that people, one, are more inclined to be negative, but two, there's some fans, and I'm sure other teams, but Celtic fans that only want the positive side, or they don't want to hear the truth about the team. When I reported about that fight in the bubble, I got people telling me I didn't see that's not what happened. Like I was there. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't want to. Like, it's not fun to report this. But it's something that had to be reported. I was right there in a bubble. People were literally arguing with me about that. Fans, that's not what happened. You're exaggerating. No, not exaggerating. Nope. Because I'm not in person going to exaggerate. I'm not like, I've been around too long. I'm not, what am I doing that for? I'm not going to sensationalize. I'm not National Enquirer here. I'm going to tell it like it is. And I think that certain fans want it that way, but most fans want only the positive spin or the negative spin where, like you said, that they can talk all day and rip the team. Missoula sucks. We want Ime back. Where's Tatum? Tatum's only about his number. Like everybody gets it. That's the thing about Jaylen. Everybody gets it. I mean, stuff Marcus has gotten over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Average Al Horford.
That was always ridiculous.
Robert Williams can't stay on the floor. Like all of them have gotten dressed down by fans. It's just is what it is. And I guess the only thing that will appease them is championship.
I'll ask you one more thing and we'll let you go because we've been at it for a while. And for anyone listening to the show for the first time, if you are, generally we do talk more basketball, but obviously some things are bigger than basketball, most especially this whole conversation, which has been really, really good. I've enjoyed it surrounding Jaylen Brown. I'm going to ask you one totally unrelated thing, going back to the fact that maybe not now, but at least you grew up as a Lakers fan. And obviously now you are someone who has for many, many years covered the NBA on not just a Boston, but a national basis. Do you believe that the Lakers and Celtics have the same number of championships? And I ask that meaning, should Minneapolis count?
I guess it should.
I need it.
I forgot like when all of a sudden Minneapolis is really incorporated into the Lakers scheme, because it's not like Mikan's number was retired in 76. It was retired like in 97 or something when they decided,
no, we'll take your 5 titles though.
Yeah, we'll take your 5 titles and we'll take like the best player who ever played for your franchise and we'll retire his number because let's face it, no one's going to wear 99 anyway, except maybe Jay Crowder. And so, yeah, I mean, it's technical. I would say it's technical, the whole Minneapolis Lakers thing. Because a lot of people don't really know that they even played there. They didn't really embrace the history in Minneapolis. In my years of following the Lakers as a fan, and even as in the 90s, when I was a young reporter, it wasn't like they were having like Minneapolis Laker reunions. You knew Mikan, right? Mikan was a larger than life person. He was the first real dominant big man in the league, even before Russell and before Wilt. And they've had Minneapolis has had many great players, but the players that I remember first were West and Baylor in terms of not personal memory, but Laker legends that the Lakers said, these are our legends, like Celtics with Cousy and Russell. The first 2 guys I remember the Lakers saying, these are our legends, is West and Baylor. And So yeah, I mean, that's a technical question. I'm not gonna should the Timberwolves put those 5 titles up? Adam, should they claim them? I mean, like who should claim
I mean,
them?
I guess somebody has to, right? But
yeah,
man, if I like all that, like the Lakers have tied the Celtics. Oh God, give me a break. Like I need the Celtics to win the next championship between those two,
Yeah, right.
just to pull ahead again, so that we don't have to hear about it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you know what? Somebody's got to do something with those titles. The Minneapolis deserves. Those guys played hard, and they lost to the Celtics several times in the finals, and were able to win 5 championships. And George Mikan was someone I said probably didn't get all the respect he deserves in terms of being an all-time great player, because he played in a time where he was like by far the biggest man on the floor. But I do think that they should give some love. I think it's good that the Lakers are finally appreciating, although I hope some of those players are still alive to see it. Now they're wearing the retro Minneapolis Laker uniforms, and it's a little late. It's 35 to 40 years late. I mean, you could have pulled Mike back into the Forum in 1978, retired in 99. That very much could have done that. I don't know why that was not done.
Yeah. All right, we are down to the final 9 games of the Celtics season before the playoffs, and hopefully a couple-month playoff run. We will see. Health is going to obviously be a big part of that. Looking at the standings right now, which may be totally irrelevant by the time you listen to this show, sees 2.5 back of the Bucks for first, and just a half game in front of the Sixers. But of course, they've clinched a playoff spot. We know they're going, and it's heavy on the home schedule the rest of the way. 6 out of the 9, and also they've already reached 50 wins. So 55 is in sight for people that like the nice I don't know, kind of benchmark type numbers. 55 would be a good one if the C's can get to that, or even more.
What was the over under? 54.5, 56.5?
I believe it was 54.5.
Well,
yeah.
Some people might be interested in that. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah. All right. For Gary Washburn, remember, check out the A-List podcast. Check out his work in the Boston Globe as well. Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. We'll be back at it again next week. And maybe at that point, start to think about playoff series and who scares you? Get into the negativity, right? All right. We'll see you later.